Thank you very much.
Okay.
Gentlemen, should I start?
I could, Joe Francis, great to be with you today. I think as you and I talked about, sleep seems to be a big issue across the board because the Army teaches its soldiers and officers how to operate on lack of sleep. Does that need to be adjusted, or is it just part of the Army culture?
No, I think it absolutely needs to be adjusted. I think we, as the Army, and it is a cultural thing that we have to change over time. It used to be a measure of how good you were and how much you could do on little sleep. We know the science now of sleep that tells us differently. And so and I think that initially, as we implement H2F, simply educating folks about the benefit of sleep or the danger of not sleeping and then getting into a critical position where you're shooting, where you're operating a vehicle or a helicopter or something else and the challenges with that on lack of sleep is important. The aviation branch of our Army has worked on this for years and has regulated sleep patterns that we do and that helps us to lead up to missions. So we've recognized this in the Army for a long time in different pockets out there. I think the more we educate the broader Army, the better we will do as leaders at making sure that we set conditions for soldiers to get as much sleep as we possibly can. It won't always be possible. Combat's combat, but there are things that you can do to enhance your performance leading up to a mission, during a mission. There are techniques that can help you be more resilient, even in the midst of extreme stress. And those are some of the things that we want to work on across the Army.
To agree, we talked about Army times. We spoke very briefly at the beginning. I said, I'm certainly a good chaplain for decades is probably paying attention to other factors in people's lives. But I'm curious if you can talk to the chaplaincy corps about how these more specific tools they have with H2F, the sleep nutrition, and how they fit into the spirituality component, and why that helps with what you guys do the chaplain mission. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. In fact, you would ask some people, they would say that the spiritual component is probably the foundation, because it all kind of relates back to a sense of meaning and purpose. So one of the things we do, in most cases when we talk soldiers or police, dealing with any challenge, we oftentimes check on those other dimensions to ensure that the individual is, taking care of themselves, getting sleep, the mental piece, and we don't stigmatize them. Right? We ensure that they know that we care about them as a person. And so we're very intentional in terms of just making sure that we integrate that. You made me think of one of the things that we're doing with our young chaplains. We're taking them through what we call an external unit of clinical pastoral education. And that particular class is designed to help them to be even more self-aware and others, and to ensure that when they're engaging individuals, they're doing that in a manner where they're intentionally looking at all aspects of who that person is, and then also offering support to them.
Small follow-up. Is that a new program, or is that something you've had more than
we've been doing that. Okay. We've been doing it for a while, but what we did is we took we have these educators, 56 delegates, so they're clinical pastoral educators. And what we've done is we've kind of put them throughout the Army, right, to help professionalize the chaplain so that we can then do better in terms of providing support to care of our soldiers and the family.
I wanted to clarify. We talked about the H2F. We talked about the practice to the course training materials, so we can start with
H2F integrator.
Integrator, and then there's also the advisory course.
Yeah, I sure can. So the H2F integrator, think company level non-commissioned officers and below. H2F advisor, we're still building that. It hasn't been done yet. We'll do the first pilot of that course in the July or August timeframe. The curriculum's being developed for that. Think of that as battalion and above. The idea is that you have folks in the unit that can deploy with the unit that are educated on the H2F domains, the core principles within each of those domains that can continue to implement the H2F as they deploy, and they won't have the entire H2F team with them. At the battalion level, the advisor course then talks about long-range planning of, okay, we have a deployment coming up, so what's the road to deployment that we need to take based on the data that we know about our unit to help us best prepare for that deployment.
Okay, and as far as the National Guard and Reserve, and even the active component, you talked about needing facilities to do this. What constitutes a facility and what equipment is that?
So each H2F performance team all Army units have what we call gym in a box as the parlance, right? So the ability to have weights and kettlebells and all manner of exercise equipment. So that's just the exercise piece of it. There's also medical sets that get fielded with each unit, and the idea is early intervention. And we're talking about tables where an athletic trainer can do minor things on a soldier. A physical therapist can do things like that. So there's a medical set that comes with it as well. In terms of the facility itself, we are transitioning existing facilities due to MILCON constraints. We're turning existing facilities. I know we're working at a school in one case, an old school that's now going to become an old commissary is going to become one in another location. Existing gyms that are being transitioned into an H2F capacity. The key is that you've got the space there, not just for the gym equipment, which is it's good to have, but it's the ability to have that team, that H2F team with all its expertise, the cross-functional team that has all the domains represented in one place that give you that comprehensive look at a soldier.
Okay, and quickly, I'm thinking to the mental health providers and behavioral health providers because the Army is struggling to get enough of them and work in places like Fort Irwin that are so remote. Are you finding the right specialists and technicians?
So we are. So we have cognitive specialists that help with that. Where required, we still tap into the behavioral health community, but again, it's done in a holistic manner by someone showing up, and several examples today of that, where you go to a behavioral health to feel a little bit better, then you come back, but we didn't solve the problem. This holistic team enables us to and identify some root causes. So maybe that mental health condition was caused because I wasn't getting enough sleep and it was causing me to perform less or perform not well, so I was getting counseled, and it started to build on itself. So you don't get necessarily to the cause other than maybe some coping things, but if I identify that sleep was the issue, then I can fix a whole bunch of things simultaneously. If that makes sense. Okay.
General Green, you mentioned your remarks about the importance of soldiers feeling that they matter and that they belong, and also that they don't just have to be strong. And then the real challenge of when a soldier comes home from a fight, what they challenge is to have veterans community all the time. What are some? You maybe explain a little bit of those key things of your remarks today.
Yeah. So really, in the Army, we're a war-fighting organization, and one of the big things we attempt to do is to really build cohesive teams. So the whole connection is really, really, really important because it not only sustains a soldier while they're in combat, it also sustains them when they go home, and not just with other soldiers, but also with their family. And so a case in point would be, I remember when we came back from Iraq years ago, and my commander was Major General Terry Wolf. What General Wolf asked us to do as a chaplain section is to put together a reintegration plan to take care of the soldiers while they were downrange, and then also have a group of people doing the same thing at home station. Now, in most cases, people would wait until they got back home to start the reintegration. We didn't. We did it in field. And so when we got back, I can tell you for sure, we had very low incidences of any kind of domestic challenges or any kind of harmful behavior. we credit that with that whole sense of connection in both places simultaneously. So, family comes back together, of course the soldier rejoins them, and when they rejoin them, it just kind of lowers the incidence of challenges, other things that might come along.
Your follow. That really segues kind of nicely into my own question about next thing. So the former sergeant major Grinston, Sergeant Army Grinston, made a good point. He acknowledged that the Army had actually changed the manual, but still people were not changing how they did state PT, for instance, right? And I've taken this much more to PT after that. How do you my words, not yours, how do you sell this idea? How do you get this to commanders to understand that this is a tool that you can use that makes you more ready, and makes you more ready? Like, how do you get that into the planning process? Like she said, putting fatigue management in every plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So great question. And so we have a at echelon education campaign going on right now. So no soldier that comes into the U.S. Army today will ever know anything but H2F and the principles that are associated with it. It's our doctrine, and it's how we train from here on out. So every new soldier's got to get it. So now it's, how do I get at echelon all the way up to the senior leaders who grew up in a different Army and a different PT paradigm and a different how do we take care of soldier paradigm. To that end, so we're getting this into professional military education as part of the POI. So at the basic officer leader course, the captain's career course, command and general staff college, and we go out and we do a whole session with all of the pre-command course students. So those that are going into battalion command and brigade command get a whole day of H2F deep dive into every domain from the experts in the Army, every PCC class. So that's how we're trying to get at this at echelon to change the culture. But that's what we're really doing, is changing the culture, right? And so we do that with our doctrine. We do that with the training and the education at echelon from private to general. We do that through the deployment of our H2F teams. They get a team, units are taking that on, and it's helping to educate not just the soldiers that are doing PT, but the leaders, right? So this is also, it's not stated as such, but it is a leader development program. In other words, it's making our non-commissioned officers and our young officers more competent in all of these domains, and then that they have the ability now to train that the day in and day out, that they're not necessarily with an H2F team. So it's a constant thing across the board at echelon going on right now. So it'll take a little bit of time, but it'll become, hopefully soon, this will get to the point where it's just the way we are. It's not a new thing, it's the thing. It's what we do.
The DoD asked you for how to put this program here.
Yeah, I briefed the Vice Chief of Naval Operations, asked me to come and lay out this program for him. And he's trying to figure out how he implements that in the Navy, like on a ship, right, that has deployments, and they're working wicked hours, and they're doing shifts and so forth. So they have a slightly different environment, but the principles are all the same. And so, yes, Chief of Naval Operations is one that was particularly interested in it.
Just a quick follow-up to that. You shared some really great statistics that we report on before, showing resources non-sophisticated. That's great stuff, and showing that. But I also heard, I apologize, I'm going to the Brigadier General Tahan, something like that. My bad. There's something else. Tahan mentioned specifically some studies with tank crews. You mentioned things that have gone on for years in the aviation community. Are those types of examples things that you guys are also showcasing? Because, like, if I'm a tank commander, and I know that, like, I can go out to the range and in 3 iterations, 3 cycles of integrating them, I can, like, really ramp up my scores. Yeah. I'm going to be more motivated to do that. That's being kind of showcased.
So I think that comes through in the execution, where it's a soldier can see, when I did this, my score went up. Right. That's where you really get the buy-in from soldiers on how to do that. But the other place is leaders. So this isn't replacing any leader's risk decision calculus at all, but it will enhance it. And that's why we're educating the leadership, the future battalion and brigade commanders that are going into command, so that they understand this is how I can employ this thing to enhance the performance of my battalion, my brigade, in combat. So what we never want to do is get in the way of a commander's initiative or a specific thing that they has to do. We're giving them tools to do this with, and commanders are taking it on, and they love it.
Oh, and just one last question on the regarding the you talk about regional advisors for them.
So we're experimenting with that right now. So in FY 26 and 27, we have specific pilot programs set up because we have to figure this out. So you may see a regional team, H2F team, that has digital connectivity with the H2F management system that we're in the process of building right now, the requirement for, and then local assets. So if you're a reservist and you're not, you heard General Harder, he got up and said, I'm not worried about the 28 days, I'm worried about the other 28 days that they're not on duty, that I don't have, that they're doing jobs or out in the civilian world. How do we continue to deliver this to them? And some of those things might look like the data management system, local medical capability that they'll have to determine within the ranks of that. So we're still working through the best way to deliver this capability to the Guard and Reserve that are dispersed and they're not on duty all the time.
I had a question. Go back to what Sergeant Major Brinson was talking about. That's some remedies to the scourge of suicide within the Army. And we obviously know what's happened in the veterans community and the struggle to reduce suicide risk. According to the father, did you speak to some of the remedies that you've seen in the Army to reduce suicide risk?
Yeah, I'll defer to
So, in terms of leaders really showing interest in care, that's one of the areas where I've seen it's really helped. And what do I mean by that? And I think someone on the panel spoke to that, where you have a litany of other things going on in life, and as a result of that, it may lead to a person taking life. Well, we've got to pay attention to those other things that's going on in their life. And so in commands that I've served in, I've seen leaders really take active interest in what's going on in their soldier's life. And then you also have, a chaplain or a behavioral health specialist or one of those individuals that can also speak with command to help give them a little bit more insight. Now, for us, and it was mentioned during the presentation, at least during the panel, that we have 100% confidentiality. A lot of times, once we get the approval, and the confidentiality belongs to the person that's speaking to the chaplain. Once we get the approval for that, then normally we're able to work through and help bring the command into that particular situation to help alleviate any challenges with potential suicide. But it all starts with care. And when I say care, I mean like really taking the time to show compassion, empathy, and care. And I'm going to even throw out another word, love, for a soldier, and making sure that their needs are being met. I've seen some success along those. Not necessarily just the suicide prevention training, but the more practical side where you're seeing something going on, and that they're not the person they were maybe a couple of days ago. And the other thing is, I've also had leaders say to me, "Hey, chaplain," or they say to chaplain, "Can you go check on
John, I just want to ask you, and I chatted a little bit about somebody who goes hand in hand with this concussion awareness. So chatting with General Odierno, we had a session with the NFL and soldiers, talked about, when they received a concussion when their near show up went off, and not wanting to leave the battlefield, leave their soldiers without the leadership. That was kind of brought up today. Is that an element of this? Trying to deal with concussion awareness and having soldiers seek help so that they can address probably longer problems.
So our Office of the Surgeon. So first of all, the Army is very concerned about the effects of traumatic brain injury on our soldiers, right? And that can come in many forms, from a concussion to blast overpressure and other things. And to that end, the Office of the Surgeon General is conducting a study. My part of that in the initial military training realm is administering ANAM testing that tests for traumatic brain injury to every soldier coming into the Army. And so that's where we're starting. And then eventually every soldier in the Army will get routine testing to see if there's a change to that test, and then take the appropriate action. So this is an initial study, and I would refer you to the Office of the Surgeon General to get the specifics of how they are putting this entire program together.
Yeah, great. I know it said on the outset of every time we talk about the spiritual dimension, but I do want to make sure that there are people out there, most everyone can agree you should exercise more, you should be healthy, sleep, but people are going to have their opinions about the word spirituality.
Yes.
How do chaplains try to address that, especially when they have a very skeptical or reluctant or reticent soldier who may not be willing to speak in that way?
So one of the things we really teach our chaplains and really try to hone in on is this whole thing about the person's right to formulate his or her religious belief or not. There are many, many ways in which a soldier will have a sense of belief. So it could be through their values. It could be something that their parents taught them years and years and years ago. It could be through the association of a closely knit group that they've connected with. What we're there for, really do is to really, support and be with that soldier and walk with them through that journey. It all goes back to, the Constitution, right? And the fact that religious liberties and freedoms, it's a right, it's our first freedom. And so if a person has a perspective of not wanting to believe, we've taught our chaplains that it's really important to respect that, because that is the way that they choose to live our life. In those cases, though, what we have found, going back to what I said earlier, is that a good number of people may have some system or, certain beliefs that they adhere to. Then what we do is our job is to come in really well and support that in whatever way we can. It's always interesting, to really to talk to some of our soldiers, and I've had an opportunity to do that on numerous occasions. One occasion I asked a soldier, I said, "Hey, tell me where you get your values?" Just a nice, honest question. And the answers that I normally get, there are various answers. I mean, they come from all walks of life and things that they believe in. The chaplain is there really to help the commander really meet those needs, and then not just meet those needs, but then also advocate on behalf of the soldier. They don't necessarily have to fall in the realm of what we would call a major faith group or even religion at all. As long as we have the opportunity to help them understand the importance of the Army values, if they choose that that's the way they want to live their life, which I think there's some very good Army values, they want to choose those, or if they have a system that they want to embrace. But we're absolutely going to respect that. And I think that's important. I kind of see that as a violation. If the chaplain is pushing in on the person because they have a different way of looking at what's important and what gives them meaning.
Absolutely. Just so I'm understanding, so some of the training that chaplains receive allows them to get some type of tools, kind of religious agnostic, to what the meaning or purpose is for the soldier.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, right, is that that's never a criteria on whether or not we should care for something, right? If they're agnostic or, belief, they have, religious belief, or atheists, it's not a criteria. It's always about taking care of that soldier and ensure that he and she have the opportunity to express their sense of meaning and purpose and what's important. Where there might be a lack, then we can come alongside of it and through conversation determine how we can either perform or provide.
You would see the soldiers who come back secular to religion.
Of course.
I did.
I mean, who wasn't talking about it before, who came back and said, all right, I need to know more about
Yeah,
this
yeah.
stuff.
No, and sometimes it's just, in most cases with the soldiers that I've had an opportunity to do, when they just want to have a place or some space to express what they believe. And what we do in that case is, if it means me going to the commander or if there's a chapel, if there's a group of them, making sure that they have a space. There is no set criteria on who gets to use of that facility, if it's a facility, because sometimes if you're downrange, it's the front of a Humvee or the back of or the back of a Humvee.
Behind the porch on.
That's right. But we make sure they get the support.
There's a saying, right? No atheist in foxholes. Isn't that the old one?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ron.
I've covered my question.
That's good. Cool, sir. I was going to ask y'all Green about attracting chaplains into the Army and into the military. What do you say to them about what the need is, what they will do, why it matters, as you said in your remarks? What do you say to attract chaplains of all faith groups into the Army and the military?
Yeah. So as you know, I mean, I think we have like 170 endorsements that endorse people to come into the United States Army chaplain. And one of the biggest things that we ask is, hey, do you have a sense of confidence? Because this is not parachute, right? There are times when you will do some parachute, but for the most part, it's expeditionary. You're out there, you're doing things that probably a lot of your friends and others that you might have attended seminary with would probably never do. And so one of the biggest things we want to know is, do you have a sense of confidence in military leadership? And that's exactly how we frame them, because that's really what it is. It's a little bit different. In my years in the chaplaincy, and I'm going to say my first couple years, I had one assignment. I guarantee you I counted more people in that one assignment than my whole 6 years and probably 8 or 9 months as a overtime. Why? Because the needs are different. And we encourage them strongly to make sure that they understand that they are there for all soldiers, regardless of what that soldier might be for. We are there to take care of them. And so when we talk about coming into the United States Army Chaplain Corps, we lay that out for them because it's different than any other type of ministry. The other benefit we have is what we call endorsements. For each chaplain that comes into the United States Army or any military service has to be endorsed by a religious organization. That organization, a lot of times the endorser may have also been a chaplain. And so that's another way to reinforce the importance of the mission that they're getting ready to step into, and that they come in with a really good understanding of what it means to be a chaplain. What I oftentimes tell people is that the United States Army Chaplain Corps is not the National Baptist Incorporated. It's not the National Baptist Church. It is a chaplaincy. And you have to be able to work with people from all different religious perspectives and, faith groups. So I get a chance sometimes to go down to, a lot of times I go down to our Chipotle class. And it's beautiful. You go in there and you see imams, you see rabbis, you see Catholic priests, you see Orthodox. I mean, people from all walks of life. What we encourage them to do, in a lot of cases, is to spend time getting to know that other person and their religion. I came in the Army in 1994 with the first Muslim chaplain in any of the services, in a very small class. We are still very close to this. So thank you.
Is the Chaplain Corps excellent?
Yes, we're doing very well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.